How's it going, my festive bakers? Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Welcome back to another video. Today we're making brioche cardamom twists. Let's get in the kitchen and get started. The festive season is all about rich and flavorful bakes. Plenty of butter, spices and sweetness to make my New Year's resolutions even more important to stick to. Brioche is the pinnacle of enriched dough with its 40% butter content. Some people may not even call it bread, because it appears to be made with the ingredient ratios of cake. The only thing keeping the dough from being cake is the slightly lower amount of sugar. Well, we will take care of that when we add the filling during final shaping. So let's get right to it. Let me show you how it's done. Starting with the ingredients. For the brioche dough, we'll need white bread flour, yeast, salt, butter, sugar and eggs. And yes, all the liquid in brioche dough is made up of egg. When it comes to the equipment, we'll need the tray with some non-stick paper, a bowl, scales, a dough scraper, a temperature probe, a brush, a spatula, a whisk, and a rolling pin. Let's start by making the dough, and all begins with temperature control. My kitchen was around 23 degrees Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit, so I left the eggs to sit at room temperature for a while to warm them up a bit. We are making a large portion of dough, so I'm using my largest mixing bowl. Pour the eggs in the bowl, add the yeast, the salt, the sugar, and give them a good mix. Now it can be pretty difficult to incorporate such a huge amount of butter in bread dough, especially when we are not kneading the dough, as I'm going to demonstrate here. So I came up with this technique a while ago, which I actually borrowed from cake making. We'll add some of the flour before adding the butter, around 8 heaped tablespoons or around 200 grams. Then we're going to whisk it to a smooth paste, and only then add the butter and whisk it in. It's much easier to whisk the butter into a thick paste like this. Once you have whisked in the butter, add the remaining flour and grab your dough scraper and mix it to a dough. This is a large amount of dough, but for this recipe we only require half of it. Whenever I'm making brioche, I always make a double batch. I use half for one project and half for another. And you can do the same. Or you can make half the recipe, it's up to you. Or whatever you do. After you've mixed up your dough, place it in a clean bowl and give it a quick temperature check. If it turns out a little bit cool, let it sit at room temperature between folds. But if it's in the correct temperature range, you can stick it in the fridge right away. Around 23 to 25 degrees Celsius is perfect, which is 73 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll cover the dough up and leave it in the fridge to rest for 30 minutes. The gluten will start slowly developing during this time, and the dough will start cooling down. After 30 minutes of chilling, we can pull it out of the fridge and give it its first fold. Dust the dough generously with flour, release it from the bowl, drop it out on the table with the smooth side down, then flatten it out and fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach point where you started. Then flip it smooth side up again, tighten it against the table, place it back into the bowl, then back into the fridge for another 30 minutes of chilling. Brioche is usually cold fermented. It makes it easier to handle and also improves the flavor. You could ferment it at room temperature, but it would be a lot more difficult. So just plan it ahead and do it in the fridge like it should be done. Okay, after another 30 minutes of chilling, we can pull the dough back out and give it its second fold. Fold it exactly the same way as previously. It should start feeling a little bit tighter now. After the second fold, we need to chill it down one more time. What follows next depends on what you're planning to do. You can either leave the dough in one piece and double the whole recipe, in which case you should give it one more fold. Or you can do what I'm going to do and split the dough in half and use it for 2 projects. In which case you should weigh it, divide it in 2, and then shape it in rounds. Shaping works exactly the same as folding, so I'm not going to repeat that rhyme one more time. After shaping, wrap the dough balls in cling film, leave a little bit of space for them to expand, and place them in the fridge for the long cold fermentation of around 18 to 24 hours. It is the next day. Let's see what ingredients we need to turn this dough into delicious pastries. We'll need some butter, sugar, cinnamon, cardamom, an egg, and some pearl sugar for topping. Let's make the filling. In a small bowl, combine the sugar, the cinnamon, and the cardamom, give them a quick mix, then add the softened butter and mix it to a smooth paste. You can of course use any spices that you like, some nutmeg, clove, allspice, or even ginger. They are your pastries, make them to your taste. Okay, once the mix is done, leave it on the side but don't refrigerate it. Let's grab our dough ball and move on to final shaping. Unwrap it, dust it generously with flour, flatten it out by hand, and then roll it out to a large rectangle. I didn't measure it, but it was about 2 feet long by 1 foot wide. That's around 60 by 30 centimeters. Don't rush, take your time and make it as straight as you can. If the dough starts sticking, dust it with more flour. Once you're happy with the size, you can move on to spreading on the filling. I always like to distribute it evenly by dotting it around on the dough. Doing it this way prevents me from ending up with too much on one side. When it comes to spreading it out, be patient. There is just enough filling to cover the whole surface in a thin layer. If you are not too confident with the palette knife, I would suggest making more filling. But once you are done with covering the dough, visually divide it in 3 and then fold it up in 3 layers. Take a third from one side, fold it over, make sure it's nice and straight, and then pick up the loose third from the opposite side and fold that over. And again, try to make it as straight as you can. Then dust the dough with flour again and then use your rolling pin to roll it out some more. We want to make it slightly bigger and ensure that it's evenly thick all over. Once you're done, lay it vertically in front of you, then trim off the edges. I like to use my pizza cutter, but you can certainly use a knife. Just don't ruin your table. Now next up, we want to cut the dough into 6 equal strips. First cut it in half and then cut each half into 3. And here's a closer look at how to do the final shaping. Take a strip of dough, lay it down horizontally in front of you, then twist it up into a rope. Once it's all twisted up, roll it into a pinwheel starting from one end, working your way down. To make it extra twisty, you can roll the loose end forward as you're working your way down. This will give the pastry more layers and will ensure that it's nice and tight too. Once you've reached the end, grab the little tail and tuck it underneath. And there you go, that's how you shape one of these bad boys. Arrange them on a non-stick paper lined baking tray with a little bit of space in between them. Cover them up, leave them for the final proof. Cold fermented brioche dough takes a while. It took me 2.5 hours. During the final hour of fermentation, you want to preheat the oven. 170 Celsius or 340 Fahrenheit fan on, or 190 Celsius 375 Fahrenheit fan off. Now let's glaze these babies. To make the crust extra rich, we'll give the double glazing treatment. So brush it once, leave it to dry for 5 minutes, and then brush one more time. And then add any toppings if you want to. I had some pearl sugar I needed to use up, so I used it. But you could sprinkle some pistachios on top, or even leave them plain. But these babies are ready for the oven, so let's get them in there. They will take around 20 minutes to fully bake. Once they're beautifully golden brown all over, they're ready. Don't worry if they get a little bit dark, that's totally normal. It is brioche dough, it's high in sugar, and it's got a double egg glaze on top. It should look dark. Now they are fine just as they are, but as a last minute thing, I decided to brush them with hot sugar syrup. It's just a boiling mix of sugar and water. It'll make the pastries extra shiny and sticky. So if you're into that, you can do it too. But it's by no means necessary. But there you go. That's how you make beautiful and delicious brioche cardamom twists. They're crusty on the outside and super soft in the middle. And the cinnamon and cardamom flavor makes it a great festive treat. Plus it's a super easy brioche recipe. I mean, most of my recipes are easy, right? I don't like to spend a lot of time making dough. Even though the whole process may take a long time, the hands-on time is minimal, and the results speak for themselves.